click More, and then choose Copy to Photoshop Fix. Okay. Again, we're going to focus first on just some basic edits. So to start with, I'm going to use the crop tool. Crop means that I want to cut out what I don't want, any negative space. So one of the things I want you to notice is down at the bottom, there are some specific sizes that you could choose. And 7 by 5, 5 by 7, that's like the photos that we do in the darkroom. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this image 5 by 7. You could choose custom if you want to, or free if you want to have complete control over the size, but I like to print my image where the sizes can be framed. So I am choosing to use a rule of thirds focal point placement. So you can see I'm putting the weight of the head right at the intersections here, which makes this a nice rule of thirds shot. I have some foreground, middle ground, background, and I like the placement of this focal point, rule of thirds. So I'm really happy with what I have here for my composition. So we crop to compose. So check. I like that my body of the dog, this is Mrs. Sidlow's dog, is running off the page. I see some nice repetition with the grass strokes here. Very good use of filling the space. All right, step 2. We're going to move on over to adjustments. And here we're just going to play with our colors a little bit, and we're going to play with some basic exposure. So if I click exposure, there's a slider bar. Now when you're playing with this, do not overdo it. Look how easily you could do that. Don't overdo it. You want to see highlights and you want to see shadows. And don't worry, we're going to be able to push these a little more later. You can play with the contrast. Again, don't overdo it because that's a dead giveaway that we don't know what we're doing. So originally we were right in the middle. I'm going to pop my contrast just a little bit. Next, warmth. This is going to start to play with our color. Notice if I go left, I'm turning blue. Right, I'm getting warmer, but you don't want to get too warm. And yes, we just learned this yesterday. You're dealing with the white balance here. So if white balance was taken incorrectly, then this is where you could fix it a little bit. You'll notice that when I took that picture, mine was a little off. You could play with your shadows and highlights here, but I'm going to take my shadows and I'm going to bring them up a little bit by sliding this toggle bar down. I'm going to see what happens when I play with my highlights. And again, it's just preference at this point. When you like what you have, if you want to check it and see what the before and after looks like, press this button top left and you could see the before, after. Big difference here because we have a lot of good contrast that we didn't have before. So check, I'm all good there. Now I'm going to take my highlights and shadows a little further by playing with light. Okay, so this is called burning and dodging. Now, we lighten areas that are maybe a little bit too dark where I'm missing some photographic detail. So here, I'm going to 2-finger zoom into the hair, and I'm going to choose to lighten the hair. Your brush size can change by sliding this up and down. Hardness, I always like to do this with 0% because I want it to blend. Opacity is how much it's going to lighten or darken. In this case, we're going to lighten it. I start pretty low, like 25%. And as I go through, I feel like if I were to check that, there's the before, there's the after. You don't want it to be obvious. So this is probably too much, which means I should bring my opacity down. I'm going to undo that lightening here. And then I take my opacity, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Maybe I'll try 10%. All right, that's adding, that's nice, that's blending. And just go through and lighten up any areas that are light where you might want some detail where you don't necessarily see some. Okay, so I was playing with the hair there. I'm going to go ahead and press this button, before, after. Now conversely, where we were lightening, we could darken areas if we want to see more detail. And again, opacity is how much. So this is pretty strong. I'm going to leave it at a 10. Hardness, I'm going to take it down to 0. And I could play with the size of my brush here. I'm going to work on darkening this hair here because I'd like a little more contrast in the fur. I'd like to see that texture. It does help to zoom in when you are doing this so that you could see your fine details. So go through your image, and again, when you're darkening, you're looking for areas that may be too light that could use for some more shadow. Look at those whiskers on that puppy. Cute dog. Okay, let's look at the before and after here. If I click this before, after, you start to see some more detail. This is the difference, my friends, between amateur editing and professional editing. So that is burning and dodging. We dodge areas that are too dark that we want to lighten, and we burn areas that are too light that we want to darken. Always playing with the opacity and the hardness of the brush. When you like what you have, go ahead and press check. Okay, a little bit with color. So let's go into color. Saturate is going to give us some more pop where we feel there should be some. I would like a little more pop. And again, this opacity is very similar to what you were doing with lighten and darken. Don't go too high or the color will be crazy. You want something kind of mild. So I'm going to go like 10. I'd like my greens to be a little bit more bold. So I'm just clicking and dragging or using my finger, and I am saturating the grass of just what is surrounding the dog. Let's look at the before and after here, because what it's doing is it's really bringing that grass to life. So there's before and there's after. If I don't see enough change, I could raise my opacity. Oh wait, that's fun. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay. The beauty of digital, right? You could check and see before, after. And you could just add more if you'd like. I might raise my opacity a little bit more. Get some more of this green going back here. All right, now let me see my before and after. Oh yeah, that's better. I like that. Okay, so the eyes. I really want to see the brown in this puppy's eyes. So I zoom in and I'm going to choose Saturate. I'm going to go right over the eyes. Let's look at it again, before, after. Subtle, but you want to see that. If you do too much, let's just say I'm going to saturate it obnoxiously. I'm going to go up to 100%. And I'm going to go right over the eye here. If you do that too much, it will show. I mean, look at that. It's obnoxious. So you could always hit restore in that area, and it will take just that away. So restore is a really awesome button there. So once you like what you have with your colors, press OK. And next we're going to play with sharpening. So sharpening, think of the opposite of smooth here. If I wanted to smooth skin, I could do that here. But in this case, the texture, I would like to play with the Sharpen tool. And I'm going to zoom into the hair. And I wish the focusing was a little sharper around the fur. So I am going to take my brush, opacity, I'm going to bring it, I'm not going to start too much, I'm going to start with 50. Hardness, I'm bringing that down to 0 because I want it to blend where I sharpen. I can make the brush any size I want. And right now I'm sharpening along the fur where I feel it's a little too soft and I would like a little more texture there. I guess soft is a texture, isn't it? I'd like texture that's more defined, I should say. So I'm just using my brush and going over those puppy ears. All right, this looks cool. I want to sharpen up those eyes too. All right, let's check the before and after here. Before. Let me zoom in and see if I see a difference. Oh yeah, very subtle. Again, but that's what you're looking for, subtle. All right. And that, my friends, will bring you to the end of basic editing.